All right, we're recording. There's no music this time, everyone, because I forgot to pull up music. Also, I've been drinking the rest of the 1738, so that's part of the problem. But hello, everyone. Welcome back to Interviews You Didn't Ask For, where everyone on this show is someone that I know. This is episode I don't know, but today I have my friend Sharese joining us. Welcome.
Hello, peoples out there in the atmosphere. Yes.
How are you this fine? What is this? A Saturday? How are you this fine May Day?
I'm doing well. I've been able to sleep. I have an 18-month-old that I sent away to her grandmother's house for 2 weeks. So I've been sleeping for the first time since I was pregnant, and just had a little walk, and I'm blessed today.
What's that new sleep like? Tell us. How does it feel?
I don't know. I feel like it's like undergrad sleep. You know how you would just sleep like you had no worries and no cares, and nobody's gonna wake you up other than maybe your roommate having relations.
Ooh, like on spring break, that spring break sleep. Like you don't have class, you don't have nothing.
Mm-hmm. All you got to do is eat, sleep, and shit. That's how I feel right now. It's a Saturday. I ain't gotta have any work to do really. So it's just like, hey, I'm just slow rolling.
Well, congratulations. That sounds beautiful. How about you introduce yourself, though? Tell us a little about yourself. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do? Where are you from? All of that.
Okay, well, my name is Sharese Nicole Shannon Mathis.
Oh, well, I'm originally the whole from government name.
Yeah, the whole government. You know, it's cool. It's cool. Y'all can Google me. Maybe you see my mugshot. You find out I'm good, a gangster. But I'm originally from Lansing, Michigan. I attended Grand Valley State University with, Miss Lady Ma'am, Laker for a lifetime.
Right on.
Then I went to Eastern Illinois and got a graduate degree in college student development. I don't recommend anybody else get that degree anymore, because once you get tired of college students and they get on your nerves, you have all this experience, but then people will say, oh, but you don't have a psychology degree. But I'm just like, but bitch, I've been doing all the damn work.
Ooh, child.
I'm like, do you know what to do if somebody died? I'd have had multiple students die on me. What do you know what to do when that happens?
You know what's so funny? That is a conversation I literally had with my boss yesterday. They asked me to do something that was kind of like, I think for a lot of people, emotionally hard to do. And I was like, ain't nobody dead. I didn't have people die. This is easy. Like, I've had to, I'm not dealing with, is somebody suicidal or sexual assault? This easy. Yep. This is just a career. Shit.
Yeah. Have you had to plan a memorial service? Did you have to call the roommate to say your roommate died, is no longer here living in the world? So, that was part of my experience. And then I lived in Flagstaff, Arizona for a little bit, about a year and a half. Yeah, that's where I went after grad school. Interesting experience. I lived my best life out there because I was 3.5 hours from Vegas. I feel like I was making really poor life choices.
You have to. What were you, like your early 20s, right?
Yeah, I was 25.
Yeah, that's when you're supposed to make poor life choices. That's that time frame.
Yeah, and at that point in time, when we go to Vegas, every shirt would become a dress, and I knew a lot of the promoters, so I didn't have to pay to get in shit. So I just drank and danced a lot and partied and lived my best life. And yeah, but then, some shit had happened out there. My pops had got sick. He's a cancer survivor, praise Jesus. But then I also got diagnosed with lupus. So I had to leave Arizona. It was too far from my folks. And ironically with that, let me tell you about this crazy situation. You said we could just talk about some of everything.
Anything you want. Mm-hmm.
When I was in Arizona, I realized that a lot of people don't fuck with their family for real.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I learned this was that, I'm a daddy's girl. My dad had the cancers. And I was just like, he had to have surgery. So I was like, I'm taking 2 weeks off of work. I'm about to go spend a week with him before his surgery and then spend a week afterwards. Because, God forbid something happened to my daddy. He didn't make it out of surgery. I wanted to be like, okay, I spent some good times with him before he went under. These fools was like, told me I couldn't go because it was like right before you hit your I forgot what it is when you get 1 year
10 year.
No, you get family FMLA, family medical.
Oh yeah.
it was like a week or something shy of Family Medical Leave Act. And I was just like, I will go and not come back. And ironically, when I left, I changed my phone number when I came home for my daddy's surgery. So they for real could not call me for shit. Okay.
So what happened with your job then?
Oh, I still have my job, but they just was like,
they was just mad about it.
They was just trying to act funny. And I, ironically, with that job, I packed up my shit in the middle of the night and left. Like, I didn't give a 2-week notice. It was some stuff happening, and I just put the keys on the desk, put my resignation letter on. The lady was on the phone. I put it on her desk and then turned it, dropped the keys, and went to the car and drove off.
You were in housing.
Yep.
So, and just for anybody watching this, I know everybody who knows me should know this, but if you lose your job, leave your job, whatever in housing, you lose your housing. So you live where you work. So it's not like if you work in an office, you like, here's the keys to the office, fuck you, I'm out, and you go home. No, your home is also the keys, you turn it in. Like, that's it. You got to go live someplace else.
But honestly, I mean, my situation there was so crazy was that they probably was about to fire me anyways. You know, it is what it is. They said that I stare people down, and when I asked them what that was, they put me on performance improvement, you know, and they were just like, you too much direct eye contact. So when they said that, I was just like, oh, I can't win. I can't look you in the face.
How they gonna tell you giving too much direct eye contact?
And at that point, I was, you know,
what does that mean?
Back in Grand Valley, I was like a size -0, so I was still super skinny at that time. Like,
where was this at again? Was this Arizona? Was this Arizona? You said
Flagstaff, Arizona. That was right when when Barack Obama got announced as president. You know, we had to hear the other speech from the dude that lost first before they even talked about Barack, and then we had to be on high alert that the students was gonna show their ass.
Yeah. Was this a PWI?
Yeah, or actually it was an HSI, Hispanic Service Institution.
Because the reason I asked that, like, I'm thinking about what you said, that too much direct eye contact. So what's the other option is you're always looking down. So it's almost like, I don't want to racialize it, but that's what it sounds like. I want you to lower your eyes and not look at me while we're talking. And the fact that you're doing it is inappropriate. Because I'm assuming other people you worked with also look people in the eye, right?
Right, but they said some of the issue was also so when I was in Arizona, it was like the majority minority was Latino and then Native American, because we were in the middle of reservation area. So Coconino County is the largest county in the country by square miles, but it's also surrounded by reservations. So it's not that far from the Grand Canyon. I've been to the Grand Canyon about 8 times. I never need to see that hole in the dirt, in the ground ever again. I feel like it took more time to drive there and drive back than the time people actually wanted to spend at the damn Grand Canyon. But your friends come, you're like, hey, what do you want to do? Can I go to the Grand Canyon? Come on, let's go get in the car. Let's go. But I think that's where I started even to think about some of my identity as a professional. When you think about things and environments that you can be in and what's realistic and what you can and cannot deal with, because it was one of my real good mentors who's like a VP somewhere, and he does great things and writes books and all kind of stuff. And he just straight up told me, he said, Super Reese, you only get to do this one time in your career. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to pack up and leave. And I had good relationships, because he's like, yeah, they about to fire you. But I had really good relationships with my custodial staff, because we actually were sneaking my boxes out of my apartment and down the elevator and putting them in my car and taking them to FedEx to sit home in the middle of the night. So it was just early in the morning, and they were helping me.
If you don't want to talk about this, I understand. But what was the reason you felt you needed to leave at night and in that fashion?
Because I didn't want nobody to know that I was leaving. It was because like you said, when you work in housing, that's your house. So I packed my whole house up in 3 days.
Were you afraid if you had gave notice or left during the day that something different would happen?
I didn't know what was going on. It was a really toxic, terrible environment. Even in the year and a half I was there, because I was only there for a year and a half. got there in July, right after grad school. So I graduated defended my thesis and stuff in June, moved there in July. Labor Day weekend, I had a student die. So the students had just moved in. Me and my girlfriends at the nail shop, getting our life together, about to go to Vegas, live our best life. And I had a student call me, Sharese, the student is dead. And I was just like, what? What are you talking about? And she was like, and I was just, I'll be there in 2 seconds, right? So I drove my car around corner. As soon as I pull up, I see medical car, ambulance, all that stuff. And I'm just like, oh shit, what's about to happen? And come to find out, young lady, her roommate went to her room and she was blue. She's dead.
Damn.
And they had been roommates. I had a sophomore year experience like building, so sophomores, and they had been roommates the year before. And basically what it came down to is she had got into a car accident and she had internal injuries that just never healed. So she was fine, went to sleep, and never woke up. So, and then a few weeks later after that, I had an RA take 40 pills with a bottle of liquor.
Oh, Jesus. What's happening out there?
It was a couple weeks later. Like, so, and then I just kept having a turnover of like my GA stat. Like, it was crazy. It was just crazy. So, and even when I left, part of the drama was I had a GA that was starting stuff with my staff. And then after I left, she did the crap to the next person, one of the golden children of the department. And I was, and then after a while, like I ghosted everybody there. Like I didn't have no social media. They didn't have my phone number. Nobody even really knew where I was at because I was just like, I'm done with this place and this experience. And ironically, I had already had interviews lined up. Like, you know, I had flew back for an interview at Grand Valley. They had hired me.
You dodged the bullet. Don't be mad.
In admissions, you know, and then I had an interview at Vanderbilt where I actually ended up going, and all that crisis stuff that I experienced was exactly what helped me to be an all-star there. But honestly, from the time I packed up my stuff and left and went on vacation with my family, everything, I really was only out of work for 2 weeks. And it was just like, you know, it's just life lessons that sometimes, you know, some stuff is just not a good fit. And I mean, I'm lazy when it comes to job searching. And I stayed at Vanderbilt for 3.5 years. And the main reason why I left is because I was getting married and my husband was like, we're not living in this situation because it was a very busy, high crisis environment. And he was just like, yeah. Nah, we're not gonna do that. Even though we could have stacked a whole lot of money, but it just was
yeah, that's the benefit of living in if you do it right. And a lot of people don't.
I didn't do it right. I bought a Camaro.
But no, you know, I've known plenty of people in housing who stay broke, and I'm like, unless you got buku student loans or something else going on, what are you spending your money on?
Oh, I bought a Camaro, but I still like had money to do stuff. Like I still was going on trips, and I just didn't save no money. Like it's just. The only thing I regret is not saving money, but like I still lived life. Like, but the way them kids always had me working, I needed to be able to live life. Like,
right.
But something else I learned from that experience too, like, although Arizona just would seem like it was like gloom and doom, I met some of my best girlfriends that I have in my whole entire life out there. Like we had this crew called the BBGs, the Black and Brown Girls. We would go to dinner every Thursday. Like every Thursday we would go to dinner, the group of us. And like they're higher ed professionals and other things all over the country. And those are my travel partners because I tell young people you will get to a point where you know who the hell you can travel with and who you can't travel with.
Yep, you sure do. You learn that over the course of time with your friends. Just because they're your friend don't mean that's the person you should travel with.
And family.
Yep. It's not automatic. Because sometimes you'll find people to travel with that you don't really fuck with on a regular basis. It's just it's like someone who you like traveling with. And y'all talk occasionally.
Yeah. So that's I got a group, you know, usually for Easter. Every Easter, there's a bunch of us that go on a trip. This year I was a little mad because, you know, because of that Rona. But, you know, and the reason why we go on Easter is because I work at a Catholic school. So I get Holy Thursday and Good Friday. So you know, that's why we be like, I kind of said like we going this time, and then we always go to church service on Sunday. Like we go to some type of celebration. We don't act ignorant the whole time. We still get, you know, Jesus on.
I'm a heathen, so I would. But let me ask you. So with all of that happening, you still stayed in higher education and in student affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Why? That's a personal.
I did some great things in the small amount of time that I lived. You know, I was at Northern Arizona. Ironically, here, this is funny too. So, when I left to go to Vanderbilt, one of my mentors, I had got him a speaking engagement for Black History Month, so he had to fly out from Nashville out to Flagstaff, and he brought me back the MLK Award. I was that MLK Award winner for like being a change agent and all that kind of stuff. I still got it after I left. Like that's why nobody knew I was leaving. Well, my professionals knew, and she knew I had gotten an award, but he brought it back for me. So I was just like, well, I still was making some kind of impact. And crazy enough, some of the things that I started in 2008 and 2009, they still do to this day.
I feel that.
And I also, like, my thing with higher ed is that, because some people are always, they ask why do I work at the institutions that I work at, because I like being a big fish in a little pond. Like, that's my thing right now. But it's just understanding that sometimes when you're at big schools, they have a lot of people that look like me, can do what I do, but sometimes the smaller schools, or even some schools in like more remote areas, they don't have a Sharese, they don't have a Jasmine, they don't have somebody that looks like them that can, you know, articulate and, you know, code switch with the best of them, that can, you know, check folks to be like, okay, you might look at me like I might look like I'm 12, but I'm not, and I almost have my doctorate, so you need to go sit down somewhere. Don't make me pull out my credentials. And like I said, Google me so you can see my mugshot so you know that I'm a gangster. Like, it's one of those situations. But which actually is not on Google because I got it removed, just to let you know. But it's just understanding, like, everybody needs an advocate. You know, you and I might not have I can't even talk. We wouldn't be where we are right now had we not had people that snatched us up, because I know that I got a colleague hired at Grand Valley, and he talked to Miss Brenda, and he was just like, damn, Sharese, I felt like I was talking to you. I said, where you think I got it from?
Oh, yeah. You know what? Now that you said it, you and Brenda are very similar. I didn't even put two and two together until you just said it. So we know your future, because, ooh, girl, you are right. I'm going to be thinking about this later. But I've been thinking about and talking about the fact that everything you just said is absolutely true. A lot of universities lack diversity, lack representation, and then it's important to have it because we've both experienced, I think plenty of other people experience finding that one person. But at the same time, I've always been troubled and bothered by the ask of us to sacrifice so much and to put ourselves in isolation because there's no other counterpart. We don't have another person that's help. You can't just have a line of Black and brown people just kind of like doing, you know, trying to support each other. You need more than one person. It can't just be a chain in that way. Like, that's nice, but the sacrifice you have to make to live in a hostile environment. I mean, think about where universities are, talk about the ones in the rural areas and very white areas, to work in a hostile environment, because that's why they need us there, because these are very white, very male, masculine schools with their leadership, and then deal with students who also bring that same type of privilege into your interactions. You got to do all that because that's the sacrifice that we have to give for students. All of that to say, doesn't that bother you? Like, are you bothered by that?
Well, to add an extra level, because you just have the base level of sacrifices, but you think about women in higher ed, especially Black women, a lot of them don't have no man, don't have no woman, even got a dog or a cat. And that's probably going to piss some people off, so I don't know if I'm going to let you tag me in this all the way. It might be a private tag, but that's what adds the extra level of sacrifice. Like, I know that I got a lot of flack when I got married. Because I was I was working on my doctorate, and I mean, that program didn't It was a whole lot going on. Like I was basically trying to make myself fit into something that I didn't enjoy. Like I was trying to push through, and I wasn't happy. But they kicked my ass out. So hey, the decision got made. But I also use that as an example because like I tell students all the time that something that would have saved me is had I registered with disability services, because sometimes with me being a person that has lupus, I'm in remission right now, but I'm just like, the whole aspect of you don't want people to know that you're sick because you don't look sick. But if you are on meds, like I tell students all the time, or tell people, the whole thing about my meds is like they either make you feel like poop or they make you actually poop. And if you're having a situation where you can't control your shit, you ain't writing nobody paper, you ain't hardly even washing your ass. Like it's just your body. If your body, you can't control your body, there's not a whole lot you can do. And I have always been like very private with my journey. Like I speak out a little bit about my journey with having lupus, but like when I'm sick, even now, my husband and I have been married for almost 7 years, like I don't really verbalize like I don't feel well. I'll just go lay down, and he'll just be like, well, I can't do it. It's a little different now that I have a kid. But for the most part, before we had Kaylee, like if I didn't feel good or if I was having a flare up, I'll just eat and then go in the room and go to sleep. Like it wouldn't even be a discussion of I don't feel good, I need this, because I'm so used to being alone or like living by myself and having to take care of myself. Like I know how to take my meds or do what I need to do to take care of myself. But because I didn't register with disability services, because they kept changing their staff person, so it seemed like every time I went to register, it was like something going on. So I just got frustrated and didn't do it. But that was the loophole for them to put me out, because I was missing deadlines because I was sick, like sick. Couldn't control my shit sick. And they was just like, all right, we done with you.
So, but with the sacrifice that we make to support students, though, like what needs to change? Because like I said, I was asking, does it bother you? It 1000% bothers me. It's one of the reasons I had to eventually say, I can't give no more. Like I feel like it's held over our heads as a guilt. The last year I worked in housing, I had a student. I remember, I will never forget, I went into one of the buildings for the floor meeting, about 200 students, and I'm looking around, there is one Black student, just one. So I do my little spiel, I leave, and the next day I get a phone call from his mother who said he drove from Grand Rapids to Southfield in the middle of the night because he realized there was no one in the building, because it's his first day, and the only person he saw who was a person of color was me. And so she called me. And so I talked him into coming back, and I said something to the director, because I'm like, this can't happen. I know we're not thinking about it that way, but I had to explain to him the rest of the campus isn't like that. But why? I would assume the rest of the campus is that way. So yeah. I felt bad when I left, but we can't own that. This can't be our responsibility because the universities won't want to do anything. So what should the universities do? I guess that's a better question.
I mean, I think also if you want to be a person of color in this environment, you also got to have a thick skin and know what you're walking into. And it just all depends on what kind of professional you are and what you're willing to do. Like I'm the director of diversity and inclusion. So I know that I have to be an example for the students to understand how to navigate systems. Like I've had colleagues who don't navigate the environment the same way, and they haven't lasted as long, or they've chosen not to continue on with the, being in the space. But even with that, like, it's frustrating that I've had to prove myself. And even in some aspects of me proving myself, I still get the, oh, you're not ready, or, you made a face at something and that was inappropriate, or, everything being policed. But at the same time, like, I know that I've made a lot of changes at the institution. Now, when we have the honors awards at the end of the year, there's diversity. There's students that are getting top awards, that are doing more things. And it's not just one, it's like multiple students that I know that I've had a direct impact in their experience on how they've gotten to the place that they've gotten to. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, it sucks. But at the bigger picture of everything I see right now is that I serve a bigger purpose. And that I know that I'm a religious person, but I'm still ratchet at the same time. But I know when the Lord tells me it's time for me to be gone, an opportunity is going to open up. Just like even the opportunity I'm in right now. When I saw the job description, I was like, damn, this is all the shit I was doing on the side on the committees. And it's going to be my whole job.
Mm-hmm.
Tie me up. So I just think that, I mean, I know I'm not really answering your question about like when is enough, but it's just like it's more of a personal thing of you understanding what enough is enough. And then also where are you at in your life? Like right now I have a lot of flexibility at my job. I have an 18-month-old. If she's sick, I can go get her. I can bring her to the office. People know it, especially now that, you know, I'm a mom and my husband's also in higher ed. If it's a late meeting and if you got a problem with her being there, then I can't be there. Or if it's too late, I'm like, I'm not bringing her out the house. Like, I'm just going to have to video in or I'm going to have to call in. And this is what we're going to have to do to make it work. So I think that it's not ideal. But at the same time, like, when it's time for you to go, you'll make headways and you'll make different things so that you can get up out. And it's just, I don't know, I just feel like when it is my time, it'll be a graceful leave. Like people will be pissed and act like they're surprised, but other folks won't be surprised. Like you, knowing you my homegirl, you gonna be like, damn, your ass should have left a long time ago. I've been trying to be your Harriet Tubman. Like, you know, I've been trying to bring you to the promised land.
I'm saying, and we could talk about it more after this, because I really do be trying to get, I know it sounds bad, but I feel like, I have a lot of feelings about this. I feel like the universities know that there's an issue and keep it right at the cusp so that you can make just enough change, but not the change that will impact the longer term of things like the actual employees. This has always been my thing with higher ed. The focus is always on the students and never on the people who work there. So like you mentioned the committees, and I was talking about this to my cousin last night, you will find that because there's only one of us, we are asked to be the diverse person on 1,000 committees, while your white colleagues get to pick and choose the things that match their interests, their growth, all of that, and you feel guilty for not sitting on the committees because they present it to you as, we need a diverse perspective. Now that you work in D&I, that makes sense. You work in, Office of Multicultural Affairs, that makes sense because you're representing the office. But this happens regardless of where you work. You work in housing, they gonna have you in shit that ain't got nothing to do with housing. It could be about the student center and shit. Like they'll have you on a committee as I was
running Black graduation when I was a hall director in Arizona. I was running the gospel concert. I was the head of the Black History Month committee. Like I was doing all this stuff. That's why when they showed me the job description of this, because the committees that you actually enjoy being on, that's the shit you like to do. Yeah, like not the stuff that they was asking me. Like I was volunteer. I was doing that stuff because like, after people die the first week of class, then you just like, it ain't shit that y'all can do that's gonna throw me off. Cause I done dealt with 2 major crisis situations in like a 6-week period. So I forgot, it was 3 things that happened. I forgot the third one, but like, it's just crazy. So it's just understanding that when it's time to go, you'll know when it's time to go. And I feel like my biggest struggle too is that I come from, first gen. My pops worked at McDonald's. My mom worked on the line for 30 years. And every time I'm doing something, my dad be like, here you go doing that free shit again. And I'm just like, what you mean? Like me being the president of, our professional organization, I ain't gonna put myself all the way out there, even though people can Google me. I said my whole government name, whatever. I don't care. But every time something happened, because my parents actually flew out to Arizona right when that kid had took 40 pills and a bottle of liquor. And my dad saw me manage that crisis situation. And he just looked at me and was just like, they don't pay you enough motherfucking money.
Oh, girl, see, that's another thing. You just hitting all the points, all the pressure points for me in higher ed. The pay is such a big issue. And I feel like, this is another thing I feel like they purposely go after first gen students because we don't, and I'm first gen too, I don't know what good pay looks like. You tell me salary, to me that sounds like good pay. Yeah. So when you tell me my salary is $30,000, I'm like, I've made it. I'm gonna make $30,000 this year with a master's degree.
Right.
Because my dad used to say the same thing too. He didn't understand how my first job I made, and mind you, my master's degree isn't in higher education, student affairs, or anything. It was in communication research. I made, I think, 20,000, 22,000. Yes, it comes with housing, but this was at Interlochen. So I'm living in the woods in basically a cabin with, oh my God, it was terrible. So the free housing and the free food was a shitty cafeteria. That's your pay. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't even have a question to go with that. You just hit a nerve.
Yeah, but I mean, even the thing about that is that I had an auntie that, you know, she, yeah, I ain't gonna go in on my auntie just in case I do decide to share this with more. Well, fuck it. Anyways, she went to school for like a semester and then she left, but she was just like, oh, aren't you an RA? When are you gonna get a real job? Bitch, you lived on housing and campus housing for a semester, but you know everything about college. Anyways, and because, you know, I was a RA or MA when we was in school, then I was a grad hall director, and then I was a hall director. And she's just like, when are you gonna get a real job? Didn't you already do that? My daddy ate her ass up so quick. I had to clap my hands on that because he was just like, you don't know what she do. And you probably couldn't do it, because I saw her when the kid took them pills with that bottle of liquor, and I saw her jump into, because, you know, I would tell people, you know how Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, like I had my alter ego Nicole Truxton. Like when a crisis situation happened, I just would get into a trance and I would turn into a whole different person. It would be like, pow, do this, do that, do that. And it was just like, I would do all these things. And then finally, when all of it was done, like, then I would have to sit in my apartment by myself and I would cry because it would just be like so much going on. But in the situation, it would be like I'm in a trance and I'll be a whole different person because I just have to gotta make stuff happen. And it just was like, that's who I had to be.
All of that for like $30,000.
I ain't never only made that. Like I think they was getting over on you.
Girl, Grand Valley. That Grand Valley paid me 30 something, like low 30s. So that's why I said you dodged the bullet. But I worked at 3 different schools, and I think the most I made was like 36 with housing. I will say my housing at Grand Valley is really nice. But yeah, I need to know. I apparently was at the wrong place and shit.
I mean, I didn't make, well, when I left Vandy, I was making around that, but you also lived in downtown Nashville though, so it was like,
yeah. I think the only place that's worth it is if you are working in housing in places like New York, you know, where you know your rent was going to be $5,000 anyway for the place you get to live.
Where I lived in Nashville, that's prime real estate. My husband had a 1-bedroom apartment, which was around the corner, and he was paying almost $1,000 a month, which was good back then. Now that apartment could easily be $1,500. Huh? But still, like we know it's like definitely double that now. So it was just, my husband wanted to tell me that he was paying $800, but you know, he had to put his 2 cents in and let me know to make sure. But regardless, like, you know, at the time that was I would live there from 2010 to 2013. Like, we know that that's way more now, especially in Nashville, because that's Nash Vegas where everybody want to live and stuff. So it's just, and they changed the way that they, I don't even think they really have live-in professionals the same way that they did when I was there, just because it's just like, it's just different. So
yeah, I will say that one of the upsides of housing is your housing is free, and in certain places it's really worth it. Allendale ain't one of them. But it's also, and that's not just shade of Grand Valley, it's just the literal location. It's not about, I mean, I got other shade for the different schools, but that's just location. But it's also furnished. So you don't have to worry about trying to find furniture, move it across the country. And that's why, I mean, I used to change jobs every 3 years or something. Like, you could just kind of up and leave if you need to. But
yeah.
And depending on where you live, your apartment might be really nice. I had a nice 2-bedroom. Grand Valley has some of the best housing in the state of Michigan, I think, in terms of student housing, and for, well, it depends on where you're living on campus, but and for their professionals. But I don't know. I'm not trying to harp on, my phone is doing so much right now. I'm not trying to harp on it because I know there are people who really, 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 really do love higher ed. I'm just a bitter old biddy who still have feelings. For the love of God, whoever's texting me, please stop. Still has feelings.
They're trying to get you to get on this Badu and Jill Scott. You know, we gonna have to get on this versus pretty quick.
Yeah, you're right. It is 7.
No, you know, they don't have an intro and stuff anyways. They're gonna be talking, it's fine.
The point is though, I think you bring up a lot of things about things that I don't think where higher ed is tackling yet, about how it treats women, people of color, people with disabilities. I mean, the field of higher ed. I think we tackle it not very well, but we do definitely take it head on for students. That's why we have offices for each, like, you know, you'll have a women's center, an office of multicultural affairs, you have a office of disabilities, you'll have all of that for students. But when it comes to your staff and your faculty, those pieces are missing in terms of support. But we're in a new day though now, because with the pandemic, everything has changed. And what are your predictions of where higher ed is headed, given the current state and where the rest of the world might be headed?
I mean, but honestly, here's the thing. Like, I'm thankful that I didn't get furloughed. But honestly, a lot of things with the furlough, you know, when they had to make them decisions, where it's just like, you know, people, if somebody don't know what it is that you do, you can't get mad you got furloughed. Mm. Like, if you just doing the bare minimum to get by, and I know that sounds very bold for me to say that, because some people, like, I know that the institution, the way they justified it for where I'm at, is that if your job depends on somebody else, then they're going to keep to somebody else and you going to have to go. But I mean, and some of that has to do with relationships. Like, I'm thankful I didn't get furloughed, but I also know that I'm the one that can reach out to students and they actually respond. Like, I had a Zoom hangout the other night with 10 of my Black women, and I wanted to get off the phone. Them heifers, I love them. But we started at 10:30 at night, or 9:30 at night, and it was almost 11. I was just like, I told y'all I sent my baby away, but that means I don't want to talk to y'all till 12. But they just was like so excited to just talk and just connect, and I just wanted to lay eyes on them. And they was asking me questions, and you know, I asked them questions too. I even did one of the little polls on Zoom and used their little language. I was just like, "How y'all doing?" It's like, "I'm good. I'm making it happen, and I hate it here," because you know they be like, "I hate it here," like. You know, but it also takes a different professional to even be intuitive enough to use their language, you know, to not feel like, you know, it's inappropriate to use the words that they use. It just means that you're paying attention. But even with the pandemic, like, I mean, right now, one reason when you sent me a message earlier saying that we could start, like, I'm taking an online certification course that's basically teaching me how to do online courses, like how to take it to the next level. And I'm taking it right now. But that was something I could have taken summers ago, because one of the questions was, you know, why are you taking the class? I'm like, because I tell myself every summer I'm going to take this class, and this is the best time to do it, because I'm not running around the community. Because with my position in diversity, like, a lot of people, when the students leave, their job stops. But because my job has so much to do with community organizing and doing various things, like, I'm doing community stuff all summer, getting stuff out the way, so that when the students get back, some of the community stuff is already done. And then also right now, because of our Latino brothers and sisters that are migrants, there's quite a bit happening with trying to make sure they're supported in this environment with the COVID. Like, I'm very thankful that I've learned so much about the migrant experience during the time I've been here, because it's almost like they're invisible people. Like, we don't think about how our food gets to the stores and why in Michigan our stuff is so cheap. That's something I've learned about living all over the country too, is the price of food. I really appreciated that, because when you was up on the mountain trying to get a melon, the melon cost damn near $8 for a damn melon. That I used to go visit my cousin in Phoenix down the mountain, and I would take a cooler and go grocery shopping and bring my stuff back up because it would be cheaper. Like, it's just stuff that you don't think about, or it's a privilege that you take for granted, that you learn more about when you live in different parts of the country. And even just the cost of living. Like, I don't get paid a lot now, but it's cheap to live here. So in
Mm-hmm.
comparison, when you do the little cost of living comparison, like I make decent money, but that don't mean if somebody that's from my school that I really don't like actually see this video, that don't mean that you don't need to run me my coin. Okay.
Our whole message was received. But do you see, because this is what I'm thinking, do you think the future of higher ed is moving more towards everyone being online? Are them online schools that you see on TV in the middle of the day where they singing a song 1-800 get your education with that person yelling at people? Are those schools gonna
Hey,
take
what you doing?
over?
You ain't doing nothing.
Yeah, like are those schools gonna take over? Because then if it's especially like what will the impact be on student affairs, because so much of student affairs isn't sitting in class teaching, it's like those interactions. So I know that was like 3 questions. But
One, I think you have to be flexible. I mean, I think that's the plus of being a Black woman in higher ed, is that I've had to be flexible the whole time. So everybody's freaking out about, oh my God, I gotta change. Like I'm always having to change to fit it, get in where I fit in. So I'm not freaking out. The only thing that got me during this COVID situation is that I'm an extrovert and I like to rip and run and I can't. And these folks out here is dirty and ain't even wearing their mask. And they be trying to
oh
be
yeah,
buff to
because
you.
you up west. You west, north? Is it
South.
north? South?
I'm on to Ohio. You know, Ohio about to open back up.
Yeah. But yeah, you in that conservative area.
Yeah, I was the one. My representative had the Confederate flag over his face, talking about something he didn't know.
Oh, I forgot about that. He
Which
had
pissed
that
me off
Confederate
because
flag mask.
where I live, it's been people here in the community that break their neck every year to get him to come to stuff that have to do with minorities. And I'm just like, you know how you feel in your spirit, somebody ain't right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. So when I saw that, I wasn't surprised. I'm just like, yeah, my little toot 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 in your belly was just like, something ain't right about this dude.
But yeah, you're right. Flexibility is key. I'm curious on how universities as a whole though are even going to figure that out, because it's such a weird time to be trying, like to be alive and thinking about politics are so much a part of this in the United States. I don't know if it is like that every place else, but in the United States, politics are such a huge part of our response to a fucking virus, which means that depending on how you lean, left or right, as a university, that kind of dictates what happens, I can't say trajectory of things moving forward. Like for instance, what was that school? It's a religious leader who's over it. I cannot think of his name. Like one of those televangelists who owns a couple universities, and he opened that boy up like last month, like just letting people come back. So it's political, but that's going to impact students and students' decisions on where they go, or even access for students of color and stuff like that. Like if I have to take these classes online and I live someplace where I don't have good internet access, I don't have a computer, because I know, the high schools and stuff are trying to fix that for students, but what are universities sending people laptops?
Well, it depends, because I know when I was the same mentor that told me that I could, leave in the middle of the night, he told me that they had their stuff together to where they sent their students home with hotspots and Chromebooks before they even left.
Wow.
So they knew what was going on with them. My situation wasn't as put together, but I'm going to change the subject because I don't want to talk about it. But,
Okay.
I think that it goes back to where you said, what is the next step for higher ed, and it's you gotta adjust. I have become the Zoom guru in the last since we had to shut down. I know how to do all kind of fancy stuff on Zoom to be able to interact and do the various things, but I realized that it was something that I didn't know how to do, and I had to figure it out. Just be able to keep people engaged. So I already, sometimes the students text me and, we interact on social media platforms and various things. It's only like my Snapchat is is a little bit more private, but so I was already meeting them where where they're at in regards to engaging them. It's other people that have been like, oh, that's unprofessional, that ain't been able to talk to their people while we've been gone.
Yeah.
So
yeah, And I think other people are allowed to be mediocre in higher ed, and minorities of various different identities have to be exceptional.
Yeah, and I mean the newest identity I have too is being a mom. So I think that's also has changed perspective a lot for me in regards to chasing students, being available at all times of the day and night, and also just realizing that like sometimes, especially when the kid was smaller, I am tired. If that little heifer, I love her, was up crying all night, or I'm trying to walk out the door and she throw up, like that's gonna throw your stuff off. Like you got to figure it out. But it's just like you come in there and you come into my office and you arguing about, are you trying to argue with me about something dumb? I just slept for 3 hours.
Patience. Like you don't have no patience at that point.
I slept for 3 hours. For real, this what we gonna do right now. So, and it's something to consider too, because I was recently telling one of my colleagues is that we would have opportunities where we would host people for dinner and discussion in the fall and those different things. And I had to tell them this year, I'm not going to do that. And I'm the one that always has the students. And you see pictures, the students always at my house. I have little dinners and different things for them, make them feel like they're at home. Some of them think they're supposed to live here. And I just be like, I don't have a doorbell for a reason, because I'll be like, I'm not opening the door if I don't know you're coming. And if I don't want to talk to you, you can just sit on the porch and look crazy. I don't care. But like, I'm not hosting anything in August for strangers with the COVID and a child.
Oh yeah,
in a chronic illness. So I think that I think that people don't understand how people are also dealing with this. Because even just like, was it last week I had posted, I was just like, I'm hitting a brick wall. But honestly, like that was me being the most vocal of how I've really been experiencing this. Like it's been kind of hard for me, but I know that I've had like people that have talked to me and, different support groups, and I go, I have a therapist. There ain't nothing wrong with talking to her. She,
girl, me too.
A hippie white lady that don't believe in Jesus, but hey, if I say something that she don't understand, she'll go do some research and be able to talk to me about it. So I'm like, that's all I care, that you trying to understand my Black experience. You might not get it, but you go figure it out and come back. Especially as I'm paying you $100 an hour, you want to figure this shit out. But I mean, I think that's just something that what I've heard that has been the most influential to me the last couple of weeks is just I got to be gentle to myself, give myself grace, and sending my kid away for 2 weeks is a different experience of sleep, but it's also like what I need to do for self-care. And I'm blessed to be able to have parents that are just down the road to be able to do that. So, I mean, if everything comes full circle, and just understanding when it's time for you to go or time to make a change, there are going to be signs, and either you pay attention to them or you don't.
Yeah, grace. I've been saying that too, to give yourself grace and give other people a little grace too. I've been saying that at least at work, because people on edge, and you talk to somebody and they a little snippy. That's because I'm a Libra. I try to keep the peace. So we have like 17 minutes left, and ish. We don't have to fill up the whole 17 minutes, because I do know that the Jill Scott Erykah Badu battle is happening. But I do have one last statement that I want to hear your thoughts about. Maybe it's a question. I don't know how to formulate it. But could you share your thoughts? Because you said a little earlier about not getting a degree in higher ed, but what would be your advice to anyone who's interested? I'm gonna take my opinion off the table. What would be your advice to someone who's interested in going to student affairs?
You need a counseling or a social work degree. Like get an MSW, get a master's in counseling, because it's the straight student affairs or the straight, college student development. Even though I learned a whole lot, I'm thankful, but I honestly don't think I would be the crisis manager that I have been had I not been able to have the great leaders and professors and different people in my program that walked us through everything. Like their whole philosophy from the school I went to, Eastern Illinois University, go Panthers, is that they treated us as grad students as future colleagues. So because they treated us as future colleagues, when things were happening, or when, we had a seminar with the vice president of student affairs, and if a student died or it was something major on campus, he walked us through everything that he had to do. So when a student passed away in my first 2 months of working as a professional, I knew exactly what to do because they taught us. I know that everyone doesn't have that experience. My classmates and I from grad school, one of our biggest complaints is that our professors taught us too much. Because once we went out into the world and we was working with other people, we was like, motherfucker, how you don't know what I know? You didn't get taught this? What? I don't understand. You falling apart? Get your shit together. So I think that's my biggest thing is that, I should have originally, my original plan was to make sure I got a counseling endorsement, but I ended up going to a different institution or getting a master's of social work because when I was out of higher ed and looking for a job, because I'm in a dual career, meaning that my partner is also in higher ed. So that is a different experience all in itself. But when I was applying for different jobs outside of higher ed, as like case managers and various things, they're just like, oh, your degree is not in this. But I'm just like, but I didn't deal with all this stuff. Like fire, flood, blood, death, assault. What else?
That is the biggest barrier I feel like I've heard over and over from people in higher when they start to look outside of it, is that the degree and the resume and the degree and the job titles don't translate as well. Because as you said, people don't understand what a hall director is. They think it's a glorified RA.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people are glorified RAs and raggedy.
That is also very true.
And bootleg. All the above.
Yep.
And they're mediocre and they end up getting promoted, but we ain't gonna talk about that right now.
Girl, hallelujah.
But honestly, one thing I learned from when I was my stint in doc school was that they talked to us all the time about learning, unlearning, and relearning. And that if you are somebody that is trying to be someone that is fruitful in student affairs or higher ed or even in whatever industry you're in, is that you have to be willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn in order to be successful. Because sometimes the stuff that you learn is raggedy, like just like some of the messages our families put in our brains, or things that thought were okay, the words and the language and the stuff that you said to people growing up, or even as a whatever, you had to unlearn that stuff. Like that's inappropriate. Like even something small as saying, oh, let's have a powwow, that shit is wrong. Especially when I was in Arizona, like in the middle of the reservation community, like that shit ain't right. Like you ain't even think about it. And just being able to realize some of the things that are, everyday words and things, phrases that we say, it could be highly offensive to someone else. Even like, I'll even tell you another thing about when that student passed away in Arizona, we had to have a medicine man come do a cleansing ceremony of the space. Like, that's not something I would ever think about. Or even just knowing that this year I gave the school prayer at the beginning of the school year, and some of my colleagues said this was the first time somebody had ever publicly acknowledged the land. So it's just about, that's where it comes back to learning, unlearning, and relearning about how we operate in various spaces.
The history, just like when you talk about language, American English has a lot of racism, a lot of homophobia in it, a lot of, just a lot of phobias and issues for different identities. Just the words we say. We say things like gypped. Gypped, you shouldn't say. When people say things are retarded, like there's so many words that we say, just part of our everyday language. And some things people are like, more aware of, but some things we just say in our everyday language and don't think of. Or I'm one of those people, I really like to learn about random shit like the ice cream truck song and the words to it.
Dixie.
Just look it up. Or how things like when they first made Kodak film, they use test models for lighting. All test models were white. That's why when you would see those old black and white films, all the black people just look like teeth because it's not lit to show that there's someone, you know, someone who's not fair skinned. And there's so much in our history that's not the blatant stuff that we're used to. It is literally embedded. And that's, I'm just about racist, right? But so much is just embedded in our history and our society.
The privilege of me being a diversity person, so I can go to work like this and be like, who gonna check me? But knowing that I live somewhere where I cannot get my hair done. When I first moved here, it was a black lady. I asked her, could she do Senegalese twist? She was like, yeah, I got you. She took 2 days and then it was unraveling in a week. I wanted to fight her. So it was just something, you know, things I talk to my colleagues about when it comes to things you need to understand when you're recruiting people that don't look like you. Or even how I almost got into a fight at the damn Hobby Lobby one time. I took a student with me because we were trying to find a journal. She trying to get closer to Jesus. We looking at journals with different like Bible verses and stuff. And my student looked up and was like, Sharese, I would be so pissed right now. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? And she's like, this lady has been following us. And I had this other lady, my other colleague in there. She was like, you know, she's so holy and sanctified. She wore a skirt every day to work. White lady, praise Jesus. And we had talked to her and was just like, you know, which one of these journals is the best to help her get closer to Jesus? So we talking, and I just started getting ignorant in the Hobby Lobby. It was just like, you know what? And I got real loud. I was just like, this lady better be happy that I'm in here trying to get closer to Jesus, because people trying to make me act like I don't know Jesus up in here. Like I said it real loud, and she just looked. It was like, and walked away. But I was just like, you know, I use that as an example to my colleagues, and one of my former colleagues, she, here goes Sharese again with this, and will roll her eyes, and I'm just like, this is my experience, and I'm a professional dealing with this. And even just telling my colleagues that, you know, it's not the same now because I've been here around here, so people know who I am now. But it still was just like, I knew that if I didn't want to deal with no shit, the best time for me to go to the store was after work when I still had my name tag on, and people would even be like, oh, you work at the institution? Because they see my little name tag, and then what is diversity and inclusion? And they're like, oh yeah, I used to do that. Bitch, no, you didn't. So I think that that's something that people think about too, or have to consider, is that, you know, you got to have a certain level of, I mean, I just know that I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I know that my faith has grown.
Institutions need to think about what they're asking people to fully do, but they don't think about it because it's nothing for them to live in that environment. It doesn't impact them the same way. So they don't realize, like, you're bringing someone in who's a person of color, what their life outside of work is going to be like. That's what I was talking about with the sacrifice. Like, it's, yeah, they don't even see what they're asking because it's not their experience.
And honestly, it's different for me now, because now that I'm back in Michigan and, you know, technology is the way that it is, like I can shoot down to Lansing, see my family, which is an hour 15. You know, my folks in Detroit area, that's another like hour and a half. My granny in Flint, which is almost like 2 hours. So I really don't need friends like I would somewhere else, because I got my family here and we're all around the same age and we have kids, and we get in the car and ride out. Like it ain't nothing. Like, oh, cuz you frying some fish tonight? I'll be there in 2 hours and save me a plate. And I'm staying the night, get my Crown Royal Peach going. So it's just understanding that it's different when you can connect versus like when you really out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's rough. But I think we're going to end it there because I'm looking at the time and I think we hit just about an hour. So I want to thank you for joining and doing this with me today. I want to thank everybody for watching. Don't hang up. I'm going to talk to you real quick after I end this, but that's it. I mean, it's a little somber, but that's student affairs, man. All right.